Sacks per game for Alabama. They rank 4th in the country at 3.46. And Washington is tied for 19th at 2.85. Now, from what I've looked at it before and all the stats, what I've noticed is great teams stay somewhere in between the top 30 percentile. Both teams are well into the top 30. I'm sorry, the top 1/3 percentile. So 33.3 repeating percentile. You're a pretty good team. If you can stay in that throughout a bunch of these stats that I'll bring out, you're a fantastic football team. And obviously, if you could stay somewhere in the top 10 or 20, that really says something about your football team. So Washington, Alabama, fantastic. Alabama is a very elite pass rushing football team. So they definitely have the advantage. But Washington is no slouch. Now, turnover margin, extremely important stat, right? Probably one of the most important stats. Washington is the number 1 in turnover margin in the country at 1.62. Alabama, this is what should concern the Crimson Tide faithful. Alabama is 36. Now, that still stays in the top 33 percentile. So, again, Alabama isn't, abysmal at the turnover margin. But at 0.38, and you're ranked 36, you're 35 spots away from the Washington Huskies. That's something that you have to be concerned with if you're a Crimson Tide fan. 2 more stats that I love to look at, which is total turnovers gained, where Washington, again, they are the number 1 in the country. Now, this is where Alabama gets back. They're tied for 20th in total turnovers gained, but they do have a few teams right behind them that have played less games. So per game, I don't have a stat on that. I would have to go through every single team, and I'm just not going to do that. I cannot find it anywhere else online. By the way, my reference is collegefootballstats.com. Fantastic website for college football stats. Alabama's ranked 20th. They have 24 total gained turnovers, and Washington has 33. So again, both teams in the top 30 percentile. Alabama behind in the turnover game, but not too far, not too horrible. But Washington is the best in turnovers in the nation. So something to be concerned about if you're a Tide fan. And again, sacks and turnovers. What are sacks essentially? Sacks are, sacking the quarterback, right? I don't have to explain what a sack is, but what sacks do is bring up 2nd and long, 3rd and long situations. What else is something that's similar to that? Tackles for loss. So I love looking at tackles for loss, and this is where Alabama makes up their ground. They're 7th in the nation in tackles for loss at 8.08. And Washington, 46 in tackles for loss, 6.3. And I think a lot of people had concerns for Washington, how are they going to beat that offensive line in the trenches? Now, sure, they can cover decently. Sure, they could strip some balls. That they're fantastic at that. But are they going to be able to compete on a 2nd and 5 situation against Alabama? That's going to be tough. That is something that is very concerning. That is something that Alabama could really expose. Now, Washington's no slouch. They're the best team in the Pac-12. They're the best team in the west side of the country. Okay, don't get it twisted. These guys are fantastic, and arguably USC is up there. But these boys are fantastic. They're not going to be any ragdolls. But as the game wears on and the game goes on, will Alabama start turning those 3-yard, 4-yard carries into these huge gashes of 15 and 20 yards, 10 yards? That is something that's scary. And I think the Big O said outside of the podcast was Washington will probably be very close or might even be leading going into the half. But once the second half comes by, that Alabama roll tide, that offensive line, those running backs, they're going to wear down Washington eventually. And let's not get away